Yo, what is up? What's been happening? Welcome back to another episode of Those Car Dudes. Today is finally the day that we show you how to do a manual conversion on your Nissan Silvia S14. So Nathan, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I've never done that in a while.
This video series is a step-by-step tutorial on how to manual convert your Nissan Silvia. And we're doing it on an S14 example, as you can see behind us. However, if you've got an S13, an S15, or even another rear-wheel drive Nissan, this process will be very, very similar and in a lot of parts, the same.
That's right, Nathan, and a few years ago we did a manual conversion on the R32, so we have some sort of experience, but yet to say we are no experts. We are not qualified mechanics, so there will be things that we don't know how to do, but we are pretty confident that this Silvia will be in manual by the end of this week.
We've done it once before, we're gonna do it again, so let's get into it.
Let's do it. Now in front of me is everything that we are gonna need to do a successful manual conversion on this S14 drift car. I'm so excited, Nathan. It's pretty exciting seeing all of it just laid out in the front. It's pretty satisfying, Nathan. I have to be completely honest with you, it's really nice.
There's a lot of moving bits and pieces. Who doesn't love a good car part?
That's right, Nathan. So I'm gonna briefly explain what all these parts are, just so you know what to get and what to be ready for when you are doing a manual conversion on your S40.
Now the first thing that you'll need is obvious, and that is a manual gearbox. Here we have an SR20 DET gearbox. We found it secondhand here in New Zealand with only a couple of 100,000 Ks. You need a master and slave cylinder. Don't forget to get the pink lines in order to get the extra 50 brake horsepower. You need a clutch fork and also a rubber grommet in order to hold the clutch fork to the box. You need a throwout bearing that's already pressed into the housing, and also don't forget about the clip that holds the throwout bearing to the fork. You need a flywheel. Make sure that you skim it if you're getting a second-hand one before it goes on the car. We have a clutch, and nothing too fancy, just something that will get the job done. And we have a new pressure plate thanks to the guys at NZAD. We have a new spigot bush for the manual gearbox. We have a clutch alignment tool to align the clutch plate, a clutch pedal because we want to be kicking that clutch when it's ready, and a cross member to support the gearbox. Don't forget about the adapter plate because the holes on the automatic chassis are in a different spot. We have a sandwich plate which we will be replacing with the automatic one. We have a new drive shaft as well because the automatic drive shaft is a different length to the manual drive shaft. A new short shifter thanks to the guys at Skulls, can't wait to put this guy in. And a new rear main end seal. Always good to replace that when the box is off the car. Well, that's basically it.
Now this is the drift car that we've been working on for the last few days, months, years.
There she is.
Definitely years, Nathan.
Wow.
Well, no, Nathan, this motor is on its last legs, and people might be wondering, why are you putting a box on a motor that's on its last legs? 20 DEs lasts a while, so I'm hoping that we can still get a few Ks out of it.
Even though they often sound like a John Deere tractor on a good day.
That's really bad, Nathan. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the car up into the air as high as we can, and that will just allow us to get underneath the car. We have this awesome creeper thing. This is like a 2-in-1, Nathan. Look at this.
Wow.
This is a 2-in-1 convertible garage creeper and mechanic's seat. So we'll be able to slide underneath like this, like this, like this, pull the box off, yo, put the manual in, boom, easy. Bro, it's not light, eh? Oh.
That jack is like a massive Big Bertha, but honestly, the best thing that we've ever had in our garage, and I know we've seen it before, but this thing will jack up higher than the Eiffel Tower and go lower than your mum's Silvia. It's just so good. I'm not even kidding. This isn't even product placement. Just go buy it. Like, it's fantastic. Although we have this awesome jack, our car is just so low that we can't get it underneath to even reach the tow hook.
So first tip of the day, Nathan, always have two super cheap auto jacks, alright?
Always. What's the problem there, JD? This is what happens when you lower your car. You experience problems that normal people will never have to face or even know.
Drop the car, Nathan.
The next step is to drain the oil out of the engine and the gearbox. The reason why we're doing this is because we want to make the gearbox lighter because it's hard to pull out. Now, technically you could pull it out with the oil in it, but you'd have oil going everywhere because the torque converter in the automatic gearbox is full of it. And when you pull that out, if there's oil in there, it's just gonna go all over your garage. It's gonna be like a slippery slide under there. So we want to drain the oil from the gearbox. We want to drain the oil from the engine because we're gonna be replacing the rear main seal / bearing on the engine later on. And if we haven't drained the oil, then when we pull the old one out, we're gonna get a surprise also and have another slippery slide. Put my bum on there and slide on under.
What do we do with that, Nathan? Make sure you're loosening it.
Oh, ow. There we go.
You got it. She might come out a little bit more that way, Nathan.
She might pop out. You don't know which way she's gonna go. What? I'm just a rookie, eh? Risk it for the biscuit.
Move the pan across.
Got it. There's enough of the edge. The next step is removing the crusty exhaust underneath the car. And we need to do this because the exhaust is right in the way of where we're going to be working. One of the things that we need to change in the car is not only the gearbox itself, but actually the drive shaft. And what I have here is a 2-piece manual Silvia drive shaft. And the reason why we have to replace these is because the automatic and the manual drive shafts are actually different lengths because the gearboxes are different lengths. So we're going to remove the exhaust so that we can start getting to the drive shaft and the other things around it, and then we'll be pulling out the automatic gearbox. We're underneath the car and we're ready to remove our exhaust. Now, we do not need to remove the front section. We can remove the gearbox by leaving the front section of the exhaust in, so we're gonna leave that in. However, we do need to remove the mid section. To do that, we're gonna take these 2 bolts off here, which remove it from the front section. I'm also gonna take the bolts off here, so that needs to come off as well. And then there's some bolts further down the exhaust we need to undo too. There's also some brackets up here, and anything else that's in the way as we go, we're gonna remove those too, and then that should come out. Then the drive shaft will come out and the gearbox and everything, and it will be good as gold. There's a little O2 sensor here that goes into your cat, and it is just seized in there. We tried spraying stuff on it, we tried heating it up, but it just keeps stripping. And so rather than making it worse and struggling with it, we're going to do a cat delete on the car anyway. Make sure you check the laws before you do this, but yeah, for us, we don't need a cat in New Zealand for the car to be road legal, so we're going to cut this sensor out of the catalytic converter. I'm not going back now. 3, 2, 1. There it is, it's gone. And there's also a little bit of a ground cable here that I'm just undoing. Gonna undo that, and then, well, are we good to come out on your side, JD?
Nathan, I just have to do one more bowl at the back and then it's pretty much ready to go. Well, there it is, Nathan.
It's a boy!
That thing looks so ugly. She's out. And now we'll be able to get the drive shaft out and go from there. But first, lunch. Now that we have the exhaust out of the car, it's finally time to drop the drive shaft out and finally be one step closer, Nathan, to get the box out. So, let's go.
Ooh. Did it break?
Yeah. These brackets are just so rusted, just snapped right off. What we want to try to do is remove the front shaft from the rear, and the way we can do that is by undoing these 4 bolts. Now we can only access 2 at a time, and because the wheels are off the floor, it means that the drive shaft spins freely. So that means when you go and undo these bolts, the drive shaft will just keep spinning. So pull up the handbrake, and that will solve that problem quite easily by making the drive shaft not move, and you can crack those loose. Once you have cracked the 2 loose, you drop the handbrake down and then you just twist it around the other way and access the bolts bolts in the back. So we'll do that from the middle and also the back, and then what we're going to do is remove these brackets, or this one bracket here, and then we're going to access these two bolts here to drop the drive shaft hoop. And then hopefully, Nathan, with everything being loose and off, we can then just slide the drive shaft out of the gearbox, move on to doing the rest of the manual conversion.
Is it tight, bro? Is it tight?
Oh, can't get it. Way too tight.
Is that it? Yeah. Yay!
Now the reason we're using a spanner like this is because on the inside it has quite a lot of grooves that are quite defined, and that just helps for the spanner to not slip. So if you are trying to undo bolts or nuts, it's quite common for spanners to start slipping and well, stripping the head and that kind of thing. So yeah, we don't want any of that to happen today, so that's why we you know, learn from our past mistakes and settle for some of these. So these are really cool. Now that we have the front half separated from the back half, we can now just pull this one down, and with this one that's being pulled down, we could just wiggle that out. There you go. Now we just got to undo the drive shaft hoop, and then the back half can come out. Now that we have the drive shaft out of the car and the exhaust out of the car, we can finally start disconnecting everything that is attached to the automatic gearbox. We're going to disconnect and unplug all of the wires, and we're also going to disconnect the oil lines that will be running to the front of the radiator. We're going to undo those and unplug everything and get this box out. Nathan, get this box out.
Get it out. JD genuinely has his hand stuck now. Like, he genuinely cannot get it out. You got it? Oh, we got pull! Bro, that was a close one, bro. I didn't think you're ever gonna get it back, eh?
I know, right?
JD is now undoing the cross member with a rattle gun.
Nathan, this is the first step for the box to come out.
It sure is, Mark. There it is.
Here we are down on the right hand side of the automatic gearbox, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things so you guys are clear. We want to disconnect everything that is connected to the gearbox. There's a bunch of wires and different things with brackets on them. Pretty much follow the wires along and undo the brackets, undo the plugs.
What if I want to go back to auto now?
Then you're stuffed. Over here, we have the pipe that holds your dipstick to check the oil level on your gearbox. As you can see, I've started separating it there. There's a 10mm bolt on the flange there. There is a 14mm bolt halfway up on the bell housing up here. That is all that's holding it on. And once you've undone that bolt and that bolt, you can pull out the whole pipe. Because we've undone the cross member, the gearbox is leaning back on an angle. That dipstick pipe is binding against the firewall. So we actually need to jack up the box again so the back of it is level again into the car, so that then we can pull that dipstick pipe out.
Now that we have everything disconnected from the gearbox, we just have to get the shifter out of the car, and then we can start on the bell housing bolts. Now what you're gonna have to do is remove the center console so you can get access to this gear shifter. You'll notice that there will be 4 bolts holding it in on each corner, and there will be a few plugs that you just have to unplug. Once you have disconnected it from the box at the bottom with just a circlip, it's still connected with the cable at the back. That cable just runs to the brake pedal, which actually allows you to put your foot on the brake first before for selecting drive, reverse, neutral when you are in park. We won't need that cable when we are going to be putting a manual box in this. So we're going to chop it off and take this hammer shark out of the car because it doesn't belong in here at all.
Does not.
Never.
Does not. Nah, I was kidding. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's where it is. Thank you. Oh, do you need it back now, mate? Oh, there you go. All yours.
We're almost ready to pull the slush box out of the drift machine.
The whale.
And the whale box, the big mama blue whale out of the sleek great white shark. However, we still need to take the starter motor off, but that is gonna come off as we do the next step, which is taking the bell housing bolts off. So we're gonna do that now, work our way around the bell housing, and then we can slide the Big Bertha right off.
We are so ready to remove this slush box from the car. Once we have undone all of the bell housing bolts from the bottom of the transmission that we can see, we then found all of the extensions that we could to reach the last few bell housing bolts. As the crossmember has already been removed, it allows the transmission to hang on an angle, which makes it easy to locate the last bolts at the top. Two of the last bolts will hold the starter motor as well and will have two nuts on the other side. Once the extensions and socket is located on the bolt, you can then use the hole in the tunnel from where the automatic shifter used to be to hold the extensions in place. Because the transmission is on an angle, you need to jack it up to take the load off the bolts you are trying to undo. With the load taken off, you can then crack the bolts loose. Repeat this process by lowering the transmission to locate the extensions with the socket on the bolt, jacking it up again to take the load off, and undoing the remaining bell housing bolts. Easy.
So we've made quite a bit of progress, and if you've come this far, well done, because you're about to wiggle the whale off the motor and set it free.
Time to wiggle the whale?
Wiggle the whale, alright? So what we're going to do here is... That light just turned off. As I was saying, before the light went off, what we're gonna... Hey, nice to see you here.
We have all the bell housing bolts out of the auto box, and we're finally about to wiggle, pry, and yank this whale off the car.
Finally, the whale will be set free for eternity. And the manual box will soon follow to spend the rest of its life attached to a mighty SR.
Go on, Nathan.
Let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Holy flip, that's almost off. Okay, we... 3, 2, 1, go. It's set free.
Okay.
Right, Greg. Lower it.
Yep.
There it comes. Oh. Got it, you got it, got it. Got it, move your hand. Yay! Bro, that was quick. We're getting good at this.
Let's go, bro.
Bro, that was a bit too easy.
Every weekend.
What the heck, bro? Send your manual conversions to JD and Nathan.
So the box is off, and now what we're going to do is we're going to remove this torque converter. It is bolted on to the automatic flywheel, so we're just going to have to access that through a bracket that is just on the other side. So just on the other side, there's this plate here with two 10 mils. We're going to remove that, and that will give us access to undo the bolt that's holding on the torque converter.
Now that you have the backplate removed from the transmission, you can access and locate the bolts holding the torque converter onto the flywheel. Now you can use a flathead or a pry bar to hold the flywheel in place, as you crack and undo these bolts from the back. Now there are 4 bolts that you have to undo, and you can only access one at a time. Once you've cracked and loosened one of these bolts, you will move on to the next by twisting the torque converter. Once you've cracked all 4, the torque converter should just pop right off.
Here she comes. Out comes the donut.
Now that we have the torque converter off, we're going to go ahead and remove this flywheel. Now it is just how long with these bolts. That's just a normal 14mm with multiple contact points. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this screwdriver and just pry it into the flywheel, and that would just prevent the flywheel from spinning around as we try and use force to crack these bolts.
Phew!
It's that moment. Did he strip it? Oh, what a noise.
I'm so tired.
Oh, cookie.
Cookie time.
Cookie time.
The slush box automatic nonsense is out of the car, in the bin where it belongs, and the S14 is now stripped from everything automatic, Nathan.
The whale has been set free back into the ocean where it belonged.
Just put that away before you hit someone, Nathan. Most of these S14 manual conversion parts are basically pretty hard to find, and well, we're just pretty lucky that we were able to find these parts and do a manual conversion on a car that is getting harder and harder to find.
Yes, that's right, these cars are getting rarer, but I know there's plenty of you sitting at home in the edge of your seat like, should I spend the money and buy a manual Silvia or get a cheap automatic one and do it yourself? And the answer is either one of those.
Buy a manual. Just buy a manual.
But we hope this video helped you guys. We cannot wait to show you the next steps in the process of the manual conversion. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, hit that sub button, and we'll see you in the next video.
Peace out.